Welcome to Tracy Aaron Talks, where functional medicine meets personal development. You want to be living your best life, but the overwhelming amount of health information out there is confusing, and the way you think about yourself is keeping you stuck. You know you are meant for more. As a women's health specialist, my aim is to simplify and equip you with the tools you need to be beautifully balanced from the inside out. Hi, friend, and welcome back to Tracy Aaron Talks, the podcast where today we're going to ditch the guilt, take charge of our hormones, and start feeling like ourselves again. I'm your host, Tracy Aaron, and if you ever felt like you're failing at self-care, or the word self-care just makes you roll your eyes, you are not alone. Today, we're getting real about why self-care feels overwhelming, how it's been overcomplicated, and what you can actually do to nourish your hormones and energy without adding 27 new tasks to your already full plate. Does that sound good? Because let's be honest, most of us don't need another thing to do. We need things to stop doing so we can breathe again. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. So let's get started. All right. So how about that elephant in the room? Why does the whole idea of self-care feel so exhausting? Well, let me tell you why. It's because we've been sold this idea that self-care has to look like spa days, 90-minute yoga classes, or perfectly curated morning routines with matcha lattes and gratitude journals. But for most women that I talk to, especially moms and busy professionals, self-care feels like just another thing they're failing at. It feels like pressure, like one more expectation to live up to. And honestly, that's backwards. Self-care shouldn't feel like another job. It should feel like relief. So today, we're flipping the script. Instead of thinking of self-care as something extra, we're going to look at it as essential nourishment, the things your body actually needs to function well. And we're going to keep it simple. I promise. So let's talk about why you're feeling so drained in the first place. Because if you're struggling to take care of yourself, I can almost guarantee your hormones are waving some red flags. So here's the top 3 energy drainers that I see in my clients. Number 1, blood sugar swings. You know that 3 p.m. slump where you want to faceplant into a cookie or have that square of dark chocolate? That's blood sugar chaos. And it's one of the biggest culprits behind mood swings, fatigue, and sugar cravings. Number 2 would be cortisol overload. Stress hormones like cortisol are meant to keep you alive in emergencies. But when you're running on stress 24/7, it can tank your energy and mess with your sleep. Number 3, most common thing I see is low progesterone. If you feel anxious or edgy or have trouble winding down at night, low progesterone might be the culprit. It's your calm and relax hormone. And it's one of the first to drop when stress levels get high. Do these 3 sound familiar to you? But don't worry, they're fixable. And that's what we're going to get into next. So let's talk about those solutions. And no, I'm not going to tell you about another solution. Meditate for an hour every morning. Of course, unless you want to. Here's some quick, realistic things you can start doing today. Number 1, start with breakfast. One of the fastest ways to balance your hormones is to eat real food within 30 minutes of waking up. Think avocado, eggs, greens. I really want you to hit that 30 grams of protein in the morning with 2 to 3 cups of vegetables. Skipping breakfast or surviving on coffee is just a recipe for hormonal chaos. There is a podcast I just did a couple weeks ago on what's wrong with coffee on an empty stomach. Make sure you listen to that. Number 2, hydrate like you mean it. I know, it's boring advice, maybe overused, but most women I work with are chronically dehydrated, and your hormones need water to function properly. Go ahead and add a pinch of sea salt to that water for extra minerals. I love the Redmond's real salt. I get the fine. I cook with the kosher salt, but I love the fine sea salt to add into my water for this exact purpose. Number 3, start here. Build 5-minute habits. We don't have to overcomplicate it. Try 5 minutes of deep breathing before bed, or a 10-minute walk after lunch, or a quick stretch while your coffee brews. How about in the kitchen after dinner? 30 air squats, right? Small wins add up over time. Number 4, magnesium is your best friend. If you're struggling with sleep, anxiety, PMS, magnesium glycinate is a favorite of mine, and it can be a total game changer. It's like a hug for your nervous system, and most women are deficient. And trust me, you really can't take too much. Number 5, go to bed earlier. Seriously. I know it's tempting to stay up for scrolling, for me time. It's the one time of the day. If you're a busy mom like me, it's the one time of day that your house is quiet. But the best self-care you can give yourself is a solid 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And trust me, your hormones will thank you. So before we wrap up, I want to share a few things that have saved my sanity over the years. I know it sounds like baby talk, but a nighttime routine. I like to dim the lights. I love to diffuse lavender oil or use serenity oil on my pillow. That's one of my very favorites from doTERRA. I like to journal for 5 minutes before bed. I keep a blank notebook right next to my bed with a pen just for this purpose. Or if I'm not journaling about what happened in my day, I'm doing something called a brain dump. I'll do a podcast episode just dedicated on what a brain dump is. It is so effective. It's a way to just get everything out and on paper so that you can rest and truly let the day go. It helps me wind down, and it keeps my thoughts from spiraling as I try to drift off to sleep. Another habit that to me is total self-care is morning sunlight. I make it a point to get outside first thing in the morning, even if it's just for 10 minutes. It boosts cortisol in a good way, and it helps me regulate my circadian rhythm and melatonin for nighttime. Another thing I love to do is batch cooking Sundays. 1 hour of meal prep saves me from living on convenience foods or toast or things out of my freezer. Hormone balance really does start with what you're putting in your mouth and in the kitchen. Batch cooking, a bunch of ground beef on Sunday, a bunch of turkey, some chicken breast, getting all my veggies sliced for the week. Make sure that I get my 2 to 3 cups per meal. So, all right, friend, that's really it for today's episode. And I hope you're walking away with just a little bit less guilt, a lot more confidence in how to care for yourself without that dreaded overwhelm. Remember, this self-care that I'm talking about, it's not about doing more. It's about doing what actually works for you. So if you loved today's episode, it would mean the world if you would hit subscribe, leave a quick review, and if you're ready to dig deeper into your hormone health, check out my Get to Know Your Hormone package. You'll find the link in the show notes. Let's find out exactly what your hormones are saying to you and about you. So until next time, take a deep breath, drink some water, and know that you are not failing at self-care. You're learning to care for yourself differently. And that, my friend, is something to celebrate. All right, talk to you next week. Thank you for joining me today on Tracy Aaron Talks. I hope you found today's episode enriching to your life. If you enjoyed today's content, would you consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving a review? That simple act helps this podcast get into the hands and ears of many more women just like you. Remember, anything you want and do not yet have will require a new set of beliefs, thoughts, actions, and a new you. I am honored to be on this journey with you as we wholeheartedly pursue true health and wellness in mind, body, and soul.